I'm not the house of cards that falls down easily. Ooh, I'm strong enough to handle what you throw at me.
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I'm your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Just what are we going to discuss? The intimacy that is mental health. Let's continue to make it as comfortable as discussing brain health or heart health. This show has been on the air for several years, and we have amazing co-hosts. And then we created a network of podcasters on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com, a place where every possible facet of mental well-being can be talked about openly. My show, after several hundred interviews, the format is this: intimate, deep, funny, touching, sometimes uncomfortable, but always vulnerable conversations with interesting people. The goal is to have you, our listening family, many of you who have become my good friends, feel as though you are listening in on private conversations. Thank you for tuning in and becoming part of this amazing journey with me, and now with our network of podcasters. Just knowing this podcast might be helping any of you realize you are not alone on this journey called being a human being makes doing this podcast worth every second.
After all, we promised we'd be cordial.
Amy, thank you so much for coming on Mental Health News Radio.
Oh, I'm really excited to be on. I've looked at your past episodes, and it really looks like a fascinating podcast.
Well, we do run the gamut of interest. We just did Munchausen by Internets, and then yesterday, I think, was on Women Who Lead Through COVID. So we cover so many topics. You fit right in here. So I'm really excited, first of all, to meet you virtually. This is my first time actually speaking with you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you too. It's really fun sitting at home and meeting people all over the country now that we're all doing things on Zoom.
Isn't it?
We're reaching out and making even more connections than we ordinarily would when we're running around doing our normal busy things.
I've noticed that too. And, I work from home and have for, 20 some years. I used to drive to clients' offices before we had, remote take over a computer remotely kind of technology. So, but I still, technically worked from home. So this isn't a big change for me. The change is I thought, well, gosh, we'll have nobody come on the show because people are freaking out about what's going on in our country and with COVID, and nope, everybody's been available to get on a podcast. So we're busier than ever.
That's really terrific. And I think that people really need the content that you provide because people are so freaked out right now. The more they can hear that keeps them cool, calm, and collected, the better.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of that, cool, calm, and collected, how in the world did you get, to be involved with Chicken Soup for the Soul? And I want to preface this with listeners. Many people think that that's just the books, but we're going to hear from Amy. It's a whole lot more than that. So Amy, tell us about the journey into moving that direction.
Yeah, it seems very disconnected. So for the first 30 years of my working life, I worked in telecommunications and technology and helped companies, get started and raise capital. I was a Wall Street analyst, ran a hedge fund, always investing in mostly small telecom and technology companies and really trying to get them started, very much like an incubator kind of hedge fund. And I went and worked at one of those companies for a while and was on the boards of half a dozen upcoming technology companies, most of which ended up failing because that's what happens, right? They always say
right.
On Wall Street, the pioneers get the arrows in their backs. Like that's the statement, which is probably so politically incorrect that I shouldn't even have said it. But it's a Wall Street term. What can I say? There's a lot of Wall Street terms that we use. I'll give you a couple others. And I use them all the time myself. Now, one of them is big hat, no cattle, which is, talks a big story. It's got nothing. And, like for the rancher with the big hat, but no.
Right.
Hat. And then the other one, which I'm constantly using, is I'm tired of putting lipstick on a pig.
Oh, I've used that all the time.
Okay. Because that's what happened. I learned that on Wall Street, when, you'd have a company that wasn't doing well and they try to dress it up. So that was putting lipstick on a pig. And that happens sometimes now. Like if my graphic designer is committed to a certain approach to a book cover, and I keep saying to him, no, just stop. Let's just throw that out. We will start over. I don't want to put lipstick on a pig. It's still going to be a pig. You know?
Right. Well, we do so many shows about narcissistic personality disorder. We actually have 8 shows on the network that are just about that. And so that term is used frequently.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, so there are some truths that are universal, whether you're in publishing or on Wall Street or in mental health. So anyway, what happened was after all those years of doing all that business stuff, my husband and I were looking for something new to do. And I had just sent my last child off to college and I had just turned 50. It was the perfect time to do something insane, like buy a publishing company at the beginning of the biggest recession to date.
Right.
Since the Depression, with Borders going bankrupt, bookstores closing by the hundreds, just utter disaster out there. We did one of the only LBOs in America in 2008. Really dumb, right? But we survived. We somehow made it through, and our publishing business was thriving. I would say right now it is not thriving because it's pretty hard to thrive when all the bookstores in the world close on you in the same week in March, and now it's gradually reopening. But not only do we have this book business, which I feel like I have reinvigorated it with a lot of new ideas, way more topical, new design, way more modern, lots and lots of new contributors from all parts of society. But on top of that, we have a great line of super healthy premium dog food and cat.
I just bought some, by the way. I had no idea. I had no clue. I mean, listeners know this is what I mean when I say you think it's just the books, because we're going to hear even more. But yeah, I heard that from Maureen Burketto, and I immediately went on Amazon and ordered a bag of dog food.
So my sister-in-law, when she got her, this is, I don't know, so obvious, but she got a Labradoodle. I mean, is everybody buying a Labradoodle? But anyway, she got her Labradoodle and the breeder said to her, I will only sell you this dog if you agree to feed it chicken soup for the soul food for the first year of its life. And the breeder didn't know about the connection. I mean, so it was really nice. It is a very high quality food, and for puppies and for adult dogs. And we have weight loss food also, and all of that. Then the other thing we have, and this business dwarfs the rest of Chicken Soup for the Soul, is we have Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment, which is actually a publicly traded company. And Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment is a big distributor of films, television shows. And we also, and this is perfect for staying at home during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
We also have free streaming. And so we all know about paid streaming like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. Free streaming is where it's all free, but you have to watch a few ads. But hey, that's the same as you were used to on broadcast television, right? It's the same
exactly. And you have choices. Ads. It's fewer ads and you have choices.
It's also targeted. Yeah. If you register, like we have several different streaming services. Our biggest one is called Crackle. It's a joint venture between us and Sony. If you register on Crackle, you see fewer ads and they're more targeted so that you'll at least be interested in the ads.
Right.
And we also own a big streaming service called Popcorn Flicks. And then we have Truly, which is more faith-based. So yeah, we're really very prominent right now during the pandemic. We have a new movie that we just started showing on Crackle for free. It's called Cooped Up. Yeah. And it's about a guy who is quarantined for 3 weeks because he's been exposed to a coronavirus at the hospital or something. And it happens to be set in Australia, and the movie was made, a few years ago. But It's so relevant.
Timely.
It is so timely. It really is. And it's a really cute movie. I watched it the day.
Well, I know what I'm going to watch tonight.
Yeah, it's cute. It's a romantic comedy built around a coronavirus. So that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fascinating to like we had I wrote 5 different series, and we've spent a year and a half tweaking them and figuring out what to put out first. And we were working with a company called Family Theater, and hopefully that it's going to go through there or somewhere. And we had it all planned to do comedians talking about mental health at comedy clubs. And because of COVID, I mean, we just rewrote the whole thing and filmed it all on Zoom, and just now have our sizzle reel and putting that out. And it's like, everyone I've sent it to has said, oh my gosh, everybody's struggling with mental health right now more than ever because they're cooped up at home. Right. And now you're talking comedy, send it to me now. So hopefully the timing for it is really good.
Yeah, people are definitely open to it. We put out our first humor collection in 27 years of publishing. Finally, Chicken Soup for the Soul put out a humor book.
Nice.
It's called Laughter is the Best Medicine. And it came out in the middle of April. And it had gone to the printer right before the virus came to the United States. And so it looks like I'm talking about the virus because on the back of the book, it says things like, do a news cleanse, don't watch the news for a few days, just hide under the covers and read these funny stories instead.
Right.
But I was referring to the Democratic primaries and the whole election thing. And so I wasn't actually referring to coronavirus, but it looks like this is referring to coronavirus. It says if laughter is the best medicine, then this book is your prescription. And I thought, oh no, people are going to think I'm being flippant.
No, not at all.
Lightly. But honestly, I didn't know. But it turns out that this Laughter is the Best Medicine book was the #1 new self-help book in America for 6 weeks in a row when it came out.
Fantastic.
Even though, it's hard to get into a place that sells books now, but we sell them at Walmart, and people have been buying them on Amazon, and now hopefully they'll start buying them at Barnes & Noble and their local bookstore. But it's been a huge hit because it just shows people really need some comic relief right now. So
they absolutely do.
It's going to be a big hit too.
I hope so. I mean, we have such incredible, this is where I really resonate with you. And I was thinking about this morning. I had somebody, a guest who's lovely, come on and say, I just really like you, Kristin, because now she works with me through Zoom because I've got carpal tunnel pretty bad. This is what happens with 25, 30 years on a computer. But anyway, she's showing me exercises because that's what she does. And she said at the end of our last session, I just really like you as a person. I really dig you. And she was really surprised. And I thought, well, does she not meet a lot of really, cool people? And then I thought, and so I asked her about it. And she said, well, I do meet cool people. But when I really meet someone like you, it's a standout because in my everyday life, there aren't every minute someone really cool coming in. And I thought about you and me and what we do for a living. And we get to meet really cool people all the time. So I'm not shocked.
I like virtually everybody I meet, though. I mean,
I do too. But I think part of it is because of what we do and the positive message that we're eating and living and breathing and sleeping every single day, that we're sort of in a space to where we just see things from a nice place because that's what we're steeped in all the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think what happens is if I meet someone who has what most people might consider to be objectionable qualities,
right.
I can move through those because I'm already analyzing, why does he act like that?
Right.
Oh, well, he's actually very insecure. So I will now excuse all negative behaviors associated with the fact that he's insecure. Why don't I just try to make him feel more secure? And then those behaviors will go away. Or whatever it is, I can I call it pre-forgiveness. I just analyze why it's happening and then immediately pre-forgive it. It's off the table now as a negative factor. And so I can just like the good stuff about the person and excuse away the stuff that might bug other people. I think the only thing that I don't do well with, and we don't really publish stories from them, is people who are very, very self-absorbed and don't see their own problems with any perspective. So if we get a story from somebody who is so self-absorbed that they think, they're the only woman in the world who ever had a miscarriage.
Right.
Instead of saying, I have now joined the 10 million other women who had a miscarriage this year,
Right.
Like I don't really sync well with those people.
Yeah.
And I know you deal a lot with trauma. We deal a lot with trauma too. And what we love is when we have somebody who selflessly shares whatever he or she went through and then talks about how they came out of it. And that perspective, I knew I wasn't the only one.
Right.
Other people had made it, so I would make it too. We really love that. So sometimes we present traumas that are so horrifying, and yet the person ends their 1,200 word story with a positive resolution where we can see they're on the upswing and they're, digging their way out of that hole. So, but yeah, I like almost everybody.
I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I really, I mean, obviously I couldn't do what I do. I couldn't do 4 shows a day talking about, things like trauma and depression and mental well-being, all the things that if I didn't really dig people, I wouldn't do this job. So, but it just is, I think it says a lot about how our brains work as human beings, how important it is to keep yourself steeped in things that you love and that you find interesting, that you're insanely curious about, because it helps. That daily practice helps your physiology be able to stay in a positive mindset. Staying in a negative track, you actually will lay down tracks in your brain, and it's really hard to get off that track when you're in there. That's why trauma is so difficult. So anyway, it's just, I'm steeped in positive stuff all the time, and so are you. And that's why in a lot of ways, we both like everybody.
Well, I think it makes us happier. So
Yes.
I was recording a podcast with Dr. Mark Golston the other day, and we were talking about what Chicken Soup for the Soul stories are like. And then he was asking me about like, what bad stuff have you been through? And so I've had a few bad things happen in the last few years, including a very serious cancer. And I was talking to him about how the oncologist had sent me to a psychiatrist when I finished my chemo last year. And I had gone to the psychiatrist, and she had gone through, her normal checklist of questions. And I had responded so well when she asked, what are you grateful for? And this and that. Mm-hmm. And all my answers were perfect. And she said, well, I don't usually see people who are in good shape like you are. I don't need to ever see you again. And I said, well, I think it's Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I was saying to Mark that I thought it was because, having read tens of thousands of these deeply personal stories, first of all, it gives you perspective.
Absolutely
makes you much less of a whiner, right?
It makes you grateful for your life. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm going through cancer, but so did, 100 million other people.
Right.
My mother died, but so did all these other people. They lost their mother. My father has dementia, and I have to take care of him. But so all these other people do that. Like, whatever it is, you're
not alone.
Of other people, tens of millions of other people going through it at the same time. And so, and also reading all these Chicken Soup for the Soul stories has made me a much, much better user of the power of gratitude, the power of forgiveness.
Absolutely.
All of those things. So I suggested all of that to Mark as the reason why I handled the trauma of cancer fairly well. And he said he had another theory. You'll find this interesting.
He always does.
Well, but you know what? I'm very practical. So he told me the science, which I am now going to totally mangle. But the science was that when you're going through chemo and cancer and fear and all of that, it triggers that cortisol response, which is bad. That stresses you out. But he said, but then by continuing to do my Chicken Soup for the Soul job as editor-in-chief throughout my cancer treatment, I was constantly exposing myself to all of these stories. And so he said, I kept triggering that other part of my brain that releases
dopamine, oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin,
right.
the feel good, the happy brain chemicals. Yes.
So it helped to offset the cortisol, which, was freaking me out.
Coursing through your body too.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said his theory was it was because I kept working during the whole time. And we put out every book we were supposed to put out. And, we didn't miss a step during my, 6 months of surgery and treatment. We kept right on schedule and I kept doing my job. And so he thought that really helped. So I thought, that's really cool. Good to know. Keep doing this job. It turns out it's good for my mental health.
See, that's what I'm saying. That's why I was like, okay, I've got a sister here because we both are steeped in this. And that is what helps keep you in a a healthy, mentally healthy space that trickles out and feeds into the rest of your life.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Hopefully it makes us physically healthier also, not just mentally healthier. That would be nice.
Absolutely. It does the whole shebang from toe to the top of your head, inside and out, everywhere. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And when you feel full, when you feel fulfilled, because I spent so much of my life half empty, because I had so much trauma to process, but turning 50, things have really changed. And now I've done so much work on the trauma that now I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to have normal problems. Mm-hmm. I could not deal with any kind of regular life problem because there was too much trauma still there to unpack. But now, okay, this is cool. And I feel like I can handle it so well because look at what the heck I already have dealt with.
Right. When you've been through real trauma, it's hard to say that anything else really matters. Like, I'll give you an everyday example. Wednesday, I ordered Instacart from CVS. So I don't know if you've done the Instacart.
Oh, yeah.
But up here we do it because I'm in Fairfield County, Connecticut, which is one of the worst hit areas in the country. And so I'm just hunkered down. I have not been in a store since the beginning of March. So Instacart, and you see like the guy shopping, it says Matthias is shopping for you. And then you see the shopping and you see what he couldn't get, what he does get. And my husband was craving Hostess cupcakes, which is definitely a pandemic thing. It's like corn oil and sugar, he's craving.
But that cream in the middle is so good. Yeah, it's magical, fluffy goodness.
And he's craving it from like his childhood. And they went bankrupt, but then a hedge fund bought them, or a private equity firm bought them, and they like restored them to.
Really? I did not know. That's why they were gone for a while. And then now you see this. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was a private equity fund actually in my town. So we're very grateful to them. So anyway, I had put down, I wanted 2 packages of Hostess cupcakes. And then the thing is scrolling along and all of a sudden it goes, Matthias has gotten you 22 packages of Hostess cupcakes. I'm like, no. And I'm texting him like, no, 2, not 22. And I'm texting Instacart like, text him, stop him. I knew they actually didn't have 22 packages at CVS. There's no way. He just was
hilarious.
I was supposed to be paying $3.50 and all of a sudden it's $44.98. I'm like, no.
I don't want those in my house either.
But I was paying a 20% tip too, because I'm trying to, like, that's
absolutely
the way of
support
is overpay, support the people who are doing the shopping for you.
Absolutely.
So I was paying a 20% tip on the 22 packages of cupcakes also. So that was a few hours on Wednesday, but it was a hassle, but more amusing than anything else.
Yeah. And those kind of things, it's, I don't know. Life is really good when you said at 50, you bought this company and got into this. And I just think something for women when we hit 50. It's just amazing.
Well, also, it was when my daughter went off to college, and so we were empty nesters.
Yeah.
So we had that going on also, empty nesters, you know, at the same time as me turning 50 and my husband turning 55. So yeah, so we did that crazy thing. And now it's 12 years already. We've been working
That's
so hard.
fantastic.
All my friends are retired now. I don't have all my friends are retired. Half of them have moved to Florida.
Wow.
You know, and they'll be like, do you want to go for a walk? And I'm like, I have to go to work. Remember, I have a job.
Right. Right. I know, but you love what you do. So
I do. It's really helping people. I know that sounds so like sickly sweet, but it is something we're actually extremely aware of in my little group of editors who put these books together. We actually do really, really care. And so when we get fan mail and somebody writes about how they were helped, we pass the letter around, and it makes most of us don't have to work anymore, and we're just doing this because we love it. So it's great when we get that feedback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how have you been able to stretch this brand to the point where you keep having material? Like, how do you cultivate the material for your next books?
So the first thing I did when we took over in 2008 was I stopped that title format, which was chicken soup for the something soul.
Right.
Because it was too limiting. And I said, why don't we just put the Chicken Soup for the Soul logo on the top of the cover and then write whatever title we want?
Yeah, smart.
And then I started looking at, there were actually, even though when we bought the company, it was already 15 years old. Was it 15 years old? 10 years old. It was already 10 years old. No, it was 15 years old. Wow, it was 15 years old. But there were a lot of topics that they had never done. And I noticed we were getting lots of stories on these topics. For example, we're not a Christian publisher at all. I mean, we're very much for everyone from atheists to any religion you can think of.
Same
even
here.
though some people think that we're a Christian publisher, we're absolutely not. But we know that people are very spiritual, and if they might be in an organized religion, or they might just believe that things happen, or there's karma or whatever. But we realized that we were getting so many stories about miracles and weird dreams that involved, deceased relatives telling them something that they never could have known. It was like, there's no way they would have known it. And so we started putting out a lot of books about miracles, angels, messages from heaven, divine coincidences, divine intervention. And those books have done really, really well. And the stories are mind-blowing. And then we also, and here's something funny, even though we're viewed as a self-help brand, we hadn't actually been putting out real self-help books. So I put out a book in 2009 called Count Your Blessings. It was a huge success. The next year I put out Think Positive. We've sold hundreds of thousands of copies. I did Find Your Happiness. I did The Power of Gratitude, The Power of Forgiveness. I mean, we started doing a lot of really wonderful self-help topics. And storytelling is a great way.
Absolutely.
Right? Great way to get that into somebody's brain.
I mean, that has been the cornerstone of my show. And I know a lot of other podcasters on the network. Just so many times I'll have someone that's in trauma. I mean, the emails that we get are just unbelievable, saying, I just listened to you telling your story again and again and again, just so I can go to sleep, because they're in so much trauma that their brain doesn't shut off and they can't sleep. But hearing someone share their story, they can actually get a break and actually fall asleep. So when you hear things like that, you realize the power of storytelling. People want to hear what other humans, how these humans got through what they've been through. And I mean, right there, that's why you're successful.
Yeah, it's so much easier to change people's behavior, to help them become happier and more productive and more purposeful if you share stories with them.
Absolutely.
Everybody learns from stories versus, I think, the self-help books that have essays and write a letter to yourself and checklists and all of that. It's just easier to take it in. It's like a spoonful of sugar with the medicine, right?
Right.
If you're taking it in through a story written by somebody, just a regular person,
Yep.
shares some epiphany that they came to in their lives, or how they dug themselves out of that hole, or just a really funny story that makes you laugh out loud and brightens your day. But whatever it is, it's really good for us.
Well, it connects you too. I mean, there are different mediums out there for, different platforms. As you know, you're in probably all of them at this point with film and the books and everything. But people feel so connected to you. I mean, look at how Oprah is so successful. How? Because she shares stories about herself and what she went through. So I find it really interesting that listeners that have listened for a long time, or even new listeners, really feel like they know you, because we're not acting. I'm sharing, this is what happened in my life. My guests are sharing, this is what happened in my life. And so you can really, it's like you know them like you'd know a neighbor or your friend or your family. It interjects that closeness. And I love that.
Yeah, I say that about our books. I say it's like you went to a support group.
Yes.
And everybody's in a circle and they're sharing their best stories with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that our books are a portable support group where you have 102 friends who are so unselfishly sharing with you. And
Yes.
A lot of our writers tell us that this is going to be the first time that their family members have ever known about the story that they're writing.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it could be, something really traumatic and really important in their lives, or it could be, a confession like, I'm the one who blew up the Thanksgiving turkey.
Right.
Whatever it is, they're just closing it for the first time in our pages.
I love it. I love it. And I mean, I was looking at the books. This is what cracked me up. And I was like, oh my, I didn't have any idea. You've got one that has, the one that Laughter's the Best Medicine. It has what is it, a llama or an alpaca?
I thought it was a llama, but after careful review of Google Images,
It's actually an alpaca.
I believe it's an alpaca.
Well, then you've got the books about the dogs. And I have to know this just personally for me. I'm sorry, listeners, if you wanted to hear something else, but I have to know, why dog food? Why did you go in that direction? Like, how did that come to pass? Because that's so random in the midst of all the other stuff that you do.
I know it is, but I have to say we do incredibly well with our books about cats and dogs because people are so passionate. We put out cat and dog books every fifth or sixth quarter. We had a licensee for many years that licensed the Chicken Soup for the Soul name and put it on dog food and cat food. And then when that contract ended, we decided to keep doing it and do it ourselves. So if you think about how much people trust Chicken Soup for the Soul, how much they trust our name, it shows the level of trust because they're willing to trust that our brand name means that this food is really good. And in fact, it is. And we make a big point out of saying, it's not made in China, it's made right here in the USA. It's clean ingredients, everything is listed beautifully. We do that nutritional analysis. There's these rating services for the food. But it's just part of this whole idea that Chicken Soup for the Soul is good for you and good for your family. And good for your pets. Children. And it's good for your furry children also.
That's right. Yes.
It's good for everybody that you love. That's basically what it is. Like we're getting into children's books and, even baby books. And I asked some, millennials because they grew up with Chicken Soup for the Soul, when they were kids, like preteens and teens, they read our books and that kept them sane during adolescence. And I said to them, what would you think about a Chicken Soup for the Soul baby book? And they said, oh, I would buy it sight unseen because I would know if it's from Chicken Soup for the Soul, it's going to be good for my baby. So it's just trust. I mean, we work really hard on that too. We are so careful about what we do and making sure that everything we do is, super high quality, very well thought through, because when you have a brand like Chicken Soup for the Soul, you're really, really careful to do everything right.
Absolutely. How has that been for you, the weight of that? Because this is very successful. I just said, well, I'm interviewing, Amy Newmark of Chicken Soup for the Soul, and everybody knows what that is. Oh, Chicken Soup for the Soul. Everyone knows what it is. So how does it feel when you sit, you have a quiet moment and you think about your life and what you've created, what you're a part of? How does it feel in terms of the weight? And I don't mean that as a negative. I just mean because it is a weight to carry a brand and what this brand stands for.
It's really not bad. What happened was when we were deciding whether to buy the company, we spent a good 9 months doing the due diligence. And my primary activity during that time was to read 100 of the past books. So I spent 3 months reading 100 old Chicken Soup for the Soul books to understand what Chicken Soup for the Soul was and what the public saw and what was this intellectual property we were buying, all of these stories. So during that time, I had never even read a Chicken Soup for the Soul book before then. I was one of the rare people who knew what it was, but hadn't ever read one of the books. So I came to it, this was like a crash course in Chicken Soup for the Soul.
Right.
And I found myself during that time that I was reading the books, I was laughing, I was tearing up a lot. Oh my gosh, so many times I was tearing up. I had these 2-week contact lenses and I had to start changing them every week because
you were crying.
They were getting like salty, and I was ruining my contact lenses with all the tears. But what happened was after that 3 months of immersion, I ended up, after the 3 months, I ended up saying, I know what to do. I know exactly what to do. And I had this confidence that I could carry on this legacy and do a good job of it because I was just filled with ideas for how to take the whole book line forward and modernize it and make it even more relevant and useful for people. So it has never really scared me. The only thing I remember scaring me was the first time I had to present to the Simon & Schuster sales force. They do our distribution for us. And I remember I went and bought a new outfit and like the most expensive suit I ever bought. And I was so nervous about that first presentation. And now, like, I just wear whatever and
right.
Old hat.
I ask that because it's, again, you want people to be able to understand. You don't want people to see you as something, I don't even know how to describe it. I'll describe it this way, by sharing a story. That's how I do it best, which is what you are all about. So I have a friend that, because of the network and all the stuff that we're doing and everything, she started to kind of treat me differently on phone calls. She's put me in this other place that's like above something. And at every phone call, I'm like, it's just me you're talking to, right? Like nothing has changed. I mean, it's literally it's just me. There's no need to do what you're doing or think that I'm different than what I am. And it made me think of how I've done that with people in my own life. I've met someone and immediately they're up above me. And what I really like about what you do, what these stories do, what podcasts can do for people is that it gets rid of that stuff and makes it human. And hearing someone that other people like you would look at and go, oh my gosh, she's done all this. And I can't be that, or I should look up to that. I always think, gosh, share the struggle, the times that you were nervous, the time that you messed up on a speech, or like you just said, where you were nervous and you bought a new outfit and now you're like, whatever, because it makes people get rid of whatever that smoke and mirror stuff is that puts a barrier between that real person, which is you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think any of my friends treat me differently now, but they're all pretty hot stuff also. I mean, I did go to a restaurant last year. We went out with some of my in-laws, and then the owner of the restaurant came over and got my autograph and everything. And I was, utterly shocked. And I thought, well, this is really cool. But they didn't say a word because they know it's just me. So.
Right. Exactly. It's just you. And I don't know. It's very humbling to go, look, I am this person that is sailing the ship. The ship is all these amazing people that are a part of it, that are sharing their stories, sharing their voices. I mean, I could be talking about your company as well as mine when I say that, and you get to be the steward of it. So you're just sailing the ship. That's all.
I am. That is totally true. I mean, it's like the way that a world leader is supposed to be, like if they become the head of state of a country, they're just steward of the ship. They're supposed to be carrying on in the tradition, making improvements along the way, but then they'll be handing it off to the next steward of the ship. It's
exactly,
you're just being fit into a pre-existing function, and your job is just to do the best that you can. But the ship is so much bigger than you.
Absolutely.
Right. And
absolutely.
Of course, I wasn't the founder of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So that gives me a lot of humility, because it was Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen who started this. I just have the privilege of coming in and continuing that mission. And we're still in close contact with them. We hear from them all the time, and they're very pleased with what we've done.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't they? So last question for you as we close out the show. How has it been venturing into the world of entertainment in terms of film, TV, online streaming platforms? I know that's way longer than a 5-minute answer, but how has that been for you? Because that's a whole other animal.
It is. And I am on the board of the entertainment company. So I do get involved with what they're doing and know everything about what they're doing. But I'm over here on the side running our book business and safeguarding our trademark and doing all of that. And sometimes we say I'm our chief sensibility officer, as well as the publisher and editor-in-chief. So I watch the entertainment business. My husband, who began as an entertainment lawyer and has run movie businesses in the past and really knows what he's doing, he runs that business, and I just watch him in awe and think, he really knows what he's doing, and he's hired amazing people to work with him. It's been really nice. I mean, we're getting really great films offered to us.
It's astounding.
And wonderful film producers are working with us. Some of the names where everybody knows them. Like we bought Mark Damon's film business last fall, and everyone in Hollywood knows who Mark Damon is. You and I didn't know.
Right. I don't know who that is.
We're not movie people, but movie people
know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah. We're associating with some terrific people. So yeah, it's been really fun for me to watch it, but I'm really over here just so busy because I really wear two hats. One is publisher, which means I do all the business stuff, and I have to worry about, do we have enough paper to print the next book? And how are the printers operating right now? And what's our sell-through at Walmart and Target, et cetera. So all the business stuff I have to deal with. And then my other hat, which is really a completely different job, is editor-in-chief of the books, because I edit every word that you see in our books. I mean, I touch everything. I do the final editing. I choose the stories, and I do the final editing of every manuscript. So I do two
So
different things.
your basket is full. See, that's why it's great to have a team, because you can go, honey, that's all this film stuff. I love it. I'm watching it, but that's your job.
That is his job. And by the way, I'm going to make you laugh now. My husband is technically my boss.
Ah, interesting.
And when I tell that to people who know us, they all laugh.
Yeah, they would laugh about that with me and my ex-husband, who I'm now living with. That's a whole other show, but it's hilarious. 33 years of a weird, non-traditional relationship. But if anybody told him you're the boss of Kristin, he would be like, okay, dreamland. Oh, Amy, you're so lovely. Thank you so much. I know you're so busy. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come on my show. I so appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It was really a fun time. It's so much fun to just chat about this stuff with somebody who gets it.
Yeah, I really get it. I mean, when I read your bio, the technology piece, and I'm not the hedge fund person, but I certainly understand the technology piece, and then running a company with a whole bunch of do-gooders. I get that too. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to have a conversation with her. But tell our listeners where they can find out more about you.
Well, you can go, I have a website, amynewmark.com, but really that website we care about is chickensoup.com. And you can go there to learn about our new books. You can learn how to submit a story to one of our books. You can learn about our pet food. You can learn about our entertainment business. It's all there at chickensoup.com.
Fantastic. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this as well. I know you'll have enjoyed this as much as I have. Amy, thank you so much. And listeners, thank you for tuning in again to another episode of Mental Health News Radio on Mental Health News Radio Network.
Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, but never without good intentions. I heat up and act on my emotions.
Thanks so much for listening to Mental Health News Radio. Our podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, and hundreds of other podcast apps, or you can visit our website at mentalhealthnewsradio.com. If you have a question or would like to be a guest, become a podcaster on our network, or join the amazing organizations that help keep us on the air, please email us at info@mhnrnetwork.com. Get ready for that special goodbye from our resident therapy dog, Miles, and a special thanks to Emily Sohn for letting us use her incredible song, Cordial, for our podcast music. Listen to the full song on SoundCloud at emily.sonne.
Don't be surprised when I don't hate on you. After all, we promised we'd be cordial. Sometimes in you I can fight it, but I oppose it.
Good boy.